So now I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Kant's categorical imperative. As I said before, Kant thinks that if morality has imperatives, if morality exists and has commands it makes on us, that they must be categorical. So he sets out to find what the categorical imperative is, or what categorical imperatives there are. He tells us there's only one, but there's several ways of saying it. And then he gives us three different, what we would call formulations of the categorical imperative, which are his different ways of saying the same thing. However, Kantians generally believe that Kant was wrong to think that that the three different ways he says it, the three different formulations, are really the same rule. So the way I'm going to discuss Kantian ethics is as if there's three different rules. And anybody could be a Kantian as long as you accept one of these three, or all of these three, or accept one for some conditions and a different rule for other conditions. So we'll just say that these three rules, in some sense, embody the core of Kantian ethics. So the three formulations, to begin with, the first formulation is called the formula of universal law. And the idea that Kant has behind this is he thinks that the rule just amounts to the command that you act from principle rather than be unprincipled or inconsistent. So when I decide to cut in line, right, because I want to get something quicker, Kant would complain that I'd have to make sure that I cut in line all the time when I want something quicker, right? Or if I cut in line in front of one person but not another person, I would need to be acting from principle. I'd have some sort of reason. It'd be a part of my principle why I cut in front of one person instead of the other. So I might cut in front of a friend. I might have a principle that says cut in front of friends but not strangers. Or I might have a principle that says cut in front of strangers but not friends, which would be the principle I was acting from if I were to cut in line in front of some people but not others. If all that happened was I cut in line and I decided to act from the principle not to cut in line, but I got tempted away and gave into an impulse and cut in line anyway, then Kant would think that there's a problem. He would also think there was a problem if I had a rule like cut in line whenever I wanted something as quickly as possible, but then at some point my fear got the better of me and I just stopped following through on that principle, right? So the idea is the first formulation is supposed to just say act on a principle, it doesn't matter which one. Make sure you stick to it, etc. However, Kant thinks that there's an additional constraint. It's not that he's going to tell you which principles to act on. He's going to say certain things aren't candidates for principles. There are certain restrictions on what things could possibly be principles. And that's because he thinks that principles have to be universal. They have to say, in a certain circumstance, do a certain action. And it has to be for all circumstances like that. So, for example, if I endorse the rule to cut in line to get something quicker, right? That's the principle I'm going to try acting from. And the problem Kant's going to say with a principle like that, or the idea of adopting that as my principle, is that if I'm endorsing the idea of cutting in line to get something quicker, well, if everyone did that, right? If every circumstance where somebody wanted something quicker, they cut in line, then lines wouldn't exist, right? Lines only exist to be cut in front of is because everyone's not acting from that principle. Now, Kant's not actually concerned that if you cut in line, other people will start cutting in line and lines will go away. What he's concerned from is he says that to be rational and to be free and to be free from being slaves to our impulses and instincts, we have to be acting from principle. And something just couldn't be a principle if it doesn't apply universally. So Kant's first formula of universal law, we could say, is just act from principle, but it'd be better expressed to say something like act from a universal principle. Of course, he thinks that all principles are universal, so it's not really different, but it's more helpful to remember what he has in mind. My favorite way of trying to sum it up, though, is to say when you perform an action for a goal, make sure that your action could be the universal way of accomplishing that goal. So when I cut in line to get something I want quicker, I have to make sure that cutting in line could be the universal way of getting something you want quicker. And of course it couldn't be, because lines depend on people not performing that action for that goal. The same thing would go for lying, right? If I want to lie to get something I want, I have to ask myself, could lying be the universal way of getting something you want? And of course it couldn't be, because lying only succeeds at getting something you want because other people aren't doing it, right? There's a trust relationship that arises up because other people don't lie just to get something they want. And it's only because of that you're able to make your lie work. So lying could not be the universal way of getting something you want. Another way to think about this is Kant's ruling out performing parasitic actions, right? Actions which are parasitic on other people not doing the same thing, not acting from the same rule that you're trying to act from. You might think to yourself, well, how would this rule out a couple things, right? Like stealing. And I'll leave that for you to think about, right? But we've already seen how it rules out lying, and we've already seen how it rules out cutting in line. So I'll leave to you to think about how it would rule out stealing and taking someone else's property. So that's the first formulation. The second formulation is what we call the formula of humanity. Now, by humanity, Kant doesn't mean having human DNA or having human biology, right? That's not morally important. But what Kant means is what's special about humans is their capacity for free choice, right? Our ability to make a choice and not be slave. And by free choice, he means not slave to our instincts and impulses like the animals. We choose our own goals. Animals, they might make choices about how to pursue goals, but their goals are set for them by their strongest impulses. We, on the other hand, Kant thinks, even if I have a really strong impulse or desire for something, I can still choose to do something different. So it's our free choice, our ability to choose our own goals. Well, our own principles, which of course principles are actions for a goal. So by extension, it is choosing your own goal too. So the formula of humanity is saying, it's a formula that's we can see now is not really directed at human biology, but is focused on the idea that we have a free choice and the value of our capacity for free choice. Now what Kant thinks here is the way he phrases it is treat others as an end in themselves, not merely as a means, which can be more helpfully summed up by saying something like, don't use other people as a tool for your own goals, right? You have to respect when exercising your free choices, you have to make sure that you're respecting their free choices as well. And the reason Kant's going to give is something like that in following through and valuing your own choices and your own capacity to choose, then it would be inconsistent of you not to also value their capacity to choose and their choices. Now, his argument's going to be much longer than that, but that's the quick summary. So what are some examples? Well, he'll say something like, if I want to get a haircut, so I'm choosing to get a haircut. Well, there's a lot of different ways I might go about that. I could go to the barber and put a gun to his head and tell him to give me a haircut. In which case, I would not be respecting his choices or his capacity to choose, because I'm making sure that it doesn't play a role in what he does. I'm forcing him to give me a haircut. I'm not letting him make a free choice to give me a haircut. And so Kant's going to say, in that case, I'm just using the barber as a mere means to get my haircut. And I'm not treating him as a goal, listening to him, valuing his choices as a goal or an end in itself. So what the second formulation, the formula of humanity, would tell me to do instead is to offer the man some money and offer him $10, $15, to see if I can get him to freely choose to give me the haircut. So I can use him as a means to get my haircut in a sense, but not as a mere means. So the mere is very important, right? I can get other people to choose to help me. I can have them assist me in getting to my goals, but I can't do it in a way that just completely disvalues their choices. So in one way of putting it is, in pursuing my goals, there's two things I have to value, right? My goals, but also other people's choices. And so I'm pursuing my goals, but I'm looking for some sort of harmony or a way of pursuing my goals under the side constraint that I don't disrespect or dishonor other people's choices. So that's the formula of humanity, or the second formula.